This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you work your A game. A made no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This is an A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you work your A game. A made no rain from the track when we unite.
Hey now, it's the Mike and JD show, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined as always by JD by God Oliva. Man, what's up, JD?
We were talking before the show started, and today's one of those days where I just feel gross. You know, like,
Yeah.
This is a gross business. Like, we know that. Like, we know the history of this stuff. Like, we know who we're talking. Like, let's be honest, everyone knows what we're talking about right now. Like, the Vince McMahon stuff hit the Wall Street Journal today, and like, you read these. Like, I know he's a bad guy. Like, I know he's a bad guy. I'm louder than most people about my hatred for this company and how it almost the overwhelming, like, not liking the production style is one thing, but my vast dislike of this company stems right from him. You know, and a lot of it probably started the night Owen Hart died, legitimately speaking. Like, I've never been able to process that as a fan, how you just go on, like, the guy died and you're forcing his peers and friends to just go on with the show in front of like people. Like, I couldn't get over that at 19, and now, and that happened before I learned about all the other stuff. And every year I'm thoroughly sickened by this guy. And today's one of those days I'm like, why do I do this? Like, his tendrils are so deep in the fabric of professional wrestling. It's just like, why am I here? Like, why do I like this shit? I don't.
Yeah, the headline flashed across CNN tonight, and I was just kind of flipping through the channels. I was just kind of going between news stations, like local news, and then something really graphic popped up on the local news, so I switched over to CNN. And there in the bottom scroll was the Vince McMahon story, and I just changed it again because I'm like, you know, my wife's gonna see that, and she's like, "You watch this stuff still?" You know what I mean? It's like I just kind of like, it's like I just feel gross for even kind of like, I'm not a part of the wrestling business. I'm just an idiot with a podcast, so I'm not.
Right.
I'm never gonna say like I'm a part of the business. I'm very ancillary, like outside looking in type of stuff. But I'm a fan, and that's what the show is. We're just a fan show, and we like to talk about the news, and we like to make fun of it. We like to tell jokes. All I wanted to do tonight, JD, was come on here, talk about fucking Cody Rhodes, and make some Falcor puns, and talk about Atreyu, right, and sing some songs. And this fucker just keeps ruining everything.
I was going to sing them all because I know the word. I know every word to Neverending Story. Like, I had jokes. I had puns. I can't make jokes about this stuff. Like,
no.
I'm even curbing my language because it doesn't even feel right to use that word today. Like, I hate this, man. This is like if you're a fan, like the first time you learn about the Mel Phillips story and what he was doing with teenage boys, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
How do I,
so,
you know?
That was so, and I'm gonna read some of the headlines. If you came here expecting me and JD to go into the graphic details of that story, we are not doing that. There are some things in there that happened, and they're very graphic, and they're in a lot of the different online reports that you can go see. You can read the actual lawsuit itself, and it'll give you every detail that you're looking for. You're not getting that out of me here. I'm not saying those things out loud where people can hear it. I am just not doing that. That is not my style. I like people to have fun when they come here, but I do feel like we have a responsibility to at least talk about it, because we are essentially, like, without us being journalists, we talk about the news. It's like drive time radio. So if any time that a story breaks, we have to talk about it. But yeah, so like, you know, I like the first time I felt that way was that 1992, you know, like around that era where that scandal came out during the steroid trials, and like the Mel Phillips and Tom Cole. I remember just kind of going through a rabbit hole about that, like in the mid 2000s. I didn't know about it until like the 2000s. I didn't know about it. And then I go down this rabbit hole and I'm watching the Phil Donahue show, and like this guy was just incredulous, right? It was just disgusting. And And then you go back even further, and then I read Irv Mushnick's book about the Jimmy Snuka case. I don't know if you guys have never read that book. I strongly suggest you guys go out there and take a look at it, about how he essentially got away with covering up a murder of a young woman, and and him not seeing young women as human beings goes back over 40 years with credible evidence. Right. And now I know these are allegations, but we kind of like, I think we're all leaning one way on this way. And I think it's okay to do that because we have years and years of allegations and evidence and things to back this up. So let me run through some of the headlines and from some of the tweets from the Wall Street Journal. I will not be getting graphic. So if you feel like that's going to make you uncomfortable, don't worry. I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to go there. So you're cool listening to this show. If you don't want anything to do with it, hey, I get it. You could tap out for a little bit. Talk about Cody later. We're going to talk about some TV deals later, okay? But Vince McMahon accused of abuse and sex trafficking by former staffer he paid to keep quiet. I'm not mentioning her name because I just feel like that's weird. A woman who received a payout from WWE boss Vince McMahon accused him, the company, and a former executive of trafficking in a new lawsuit. The former WWE employee said that she was abused and exploited by McMahon while he was CEO, alleging that he lured her with promises of career advancement and exploited and trafficked her to other men inside the company. God. The women also alleged that McMahon directed her to explicit photos for a WWE superstar that the CEO was trying to resign. This is from the Wall Street Journal again. People familiar said that wrestler was Brock Lesnar. Lesnar didn't immediately respond Thursday to requests for comment. The woman signed a non-disclosure agreement in 2022 in which McMahon agreed to pay $3 million for her not to discuss their relationship or to disparage him. The settlement was among those that the Wall Street Journal first revealed McMahon had reached with multiple women. The suit complicates the legal picture around McMahon. Federal prosecutors have been probing payouts he made to women, and in July 2023, agents executed a search warrant on McMahon and served him with a grand jury subpoena. No charges have been brought. And lastly, his response from his lawyer said this lawsuit is replete with lies, obscene, made-up instances that never occurred, and a vindictive distortion of the truth. He will vigorously defend himself. One thing that I did not put in that note that I think is also a part of the story is that he agreed to pay that $3 million, paid $1 million of it, and then reneged on the rest of the payments. And so that just goes to show you the way he treats people as subhuman. And then he also has another history where he's making deals with people and then completely backs out on the deals because he doesn't feel like they're powerful enough to do anything about it. This is a megalomaniac that we're talking about here. And he feels like he's Teflon and he can get away with everything. And then when he got appointed back to the board of directors, around the same time, he stops making payments because he feels like hey, look, the news cycle moved on. I got away with it. No big deal. But boom, here we are right back in the same position.
So I got myself in a little bit of trouble today in our BFI chat because I'm a firm believer that the reason why people like this are allowed to continue is because they're empowered and they're emboldened by previous actions, because people around them prop them up because it protects them. And this is what bothers me the most about all this. And again, I'm going to say something that sounds weird. It's like, I know what Vince McMahon is. So like I know he's a rotten person. So I read all this and it was gross, but I can't say any of it like shocked me to my core. Like, that's him. Like, I believe it, right? What bothers me the most about all this is how the people around him know who he is and prop him up because it serves their interests financially, right? That bothers me. That I have a hard time reconciling that fact. I have a hard time accepting that quote unquote, and this is me. This is not Mike. This is not the Voices of Wrestling saying. This is JD Oliva. If you know who this guy is and know what he's done, if you sit there and tell me, well, there's good people there. No, man, there's not. Abuse happens because good people turn a blind eye because it's too hard to face reality. Abuse happens because people choose to ignore things because it serves their best interests. And you can sit there and say, well, people need jobs, man. It's like, yeah, but I'll give Eric Young credit. Eric Young said, I'm not working for that rapist. Eric Young straight up said, I'm not working for that rapist. And he's one of and then I got to listen to my favorite professional wrestler almost of all time, Bryan Danielson, tell me what a great guy Vince McMahon is. without missing a beat. That grosses me out. And I'm grossed out by the fans who will sit there and try to tell me everything is fine. Vince is just a bad guy. And it's like, well, there's a lot of people there that decided to just ignore all this because it served them. This is me. This is not Mike. This is not Joe or Rich or anybody else in VOW. This is me. I will own this. I'm disgusted by the former board, right, who voted unanimously to kick him out. And then when it became obvious that he was coming back, whether they wanted it or not, they, rather than do the right thing and walk away when they knew this stuff, the board knew this is from their investigation. This all came out from their investigation when they brought him back in anyway, because somebody wanted to be, I don't know, the booker really bad. A guy who's already a millionaire wanted to be the booker so badly that he swallows his morals to do what's best for him in the moment. Zero respect. Steph walked away. Right? We've been wondering why Stephanie left. I'll give her. I'm gonna tip my cap. I said that seemed. I'm gonna read some tea leaves on this. Sure seemed like she said, I don't want a part of this, and walked away. Tip my cap if that's what happened. But other people there should be fucking ashamed of yourselves. You should be fucking ashamed of yourselves. If you're gonna sit there and bow to Vince McMahon when he's on TV, you should be fucking embarrassed that you did that. Right? There are no innocent people, and I think that we're just as guilty because we imbibe in this hobby too, and it's fucking disgusting. And I'm mad at myself and everybody, to be honest with you.
Yeah. This whole thing is gross. And we were having a conversation with a friend today, and we're not going to mention any names. This friend was not John Muse, by the way. JD and I, believe it or not, have more than one friend that knows things. And so,
does everyone think that when we say a friend, we're always talking about John Muse?
I would assume so, because I would assume so. Like the people kind of catching on when we talk. Like a friend of ours was talking about booking. It's like, oh yeah, the chances are. Yeah. So but a completely different friend who has been in the know for a long time, and he kind of and he told us some stuff whenever this first broke out, when Vince got ousted the first time. He told us some stuff, and that stuff came to fruition today. Stuff with, and he was talking about Brock Lesnar, and that stuff came to fruition today, right? And some of that stuff came out to light, and we didn't, hey, look, we didn't know what was what, so we just didn't say anything, and then so that come, well, yeah, exactly, and we're not investigative journalists, and then he tells us today there's some other shoes that are probably going to drop on this deal. So I don't think anybody's out of the woods yet. I do agree. Like if there are people that knew, people knew something. Did they know all these gruesome details? The gruesome details of it shocked the hell out of me. Like I knew it was bad. This is way worse than I ever thought it was.
Yeah, I agree.
Like this went from a very bad guy to a complete monster. This is Harvey Weinstein. We talked a few weeks ago how I said, like, don't mention Harvey Weinstein unless it's fucking Harvey. Like, no, Vince is fucking Harvey Weinstein here. Like, no, this is what this is, right? Like, I always say, like, it's those, like, Hitler and Weinstein. Don't mention them unless you mean it. I mean it in this situation. I thought Lance Storm, he was on his show today with Brian Alvarez. I want to play some of his stuff because he kind of said things in a way that I think JD and I and our audience would agree with today. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pull up. We're going to pull up, everybody listen to Lance Storm. Now, full disclosure, Lance Storm worked there for a long time. He did go back at one point, but he ended up leaving during the pandemic, and he's been wrestling for TNA ever since. I think Lance Storm is a guy with integrity, and I don't think that he would go back to WWE under any circumstances, but listen to what he had to say.
Lance.
Yeah, look, I was one of the few that said he needed to be gone when the story first broke. And I was outspoken against him being allowed back into the office, being allowed back at shows when he came back. And when he came back, I stopped watching the product and only just recently started seeing some of the shows out of necessity. Like, this is, when you were reading the account of how this started, it's like, that's classic sexual predator stuff. Find someone down on their luck and start grooming them and bending them to your will. Like, not only should he be booted off the board, take his keys to the office away, bar him from going to shows, and I think there needs to be a legitimate cleaning house of anyone who covered anything up, who knew about this. Like, this is absolutely disgustingly horrible. and he needs to be gone and done. And I hope there's criminal charges brought if any of this is even remotely true, which, with there being so many NDAs and a long list of things, it's like I can't fathom how it isn't.
Yeah, and so yeah, well said. And that's exactly where I stand. If there is someone that's Joe Paterno in this organization, they need to go. Sounds like there might be multiple Joe Paternos. Now, I'm not willing to accuse anybody directly, because accusing someone of being complicit with sex trafficking, that's a huge fucking accusation. But what I will say, an investigation needs to be done. I want to know who knew what and when and how much they knew. And when that information comes out, they need to take action swiftly and get rid of these fuckers and burn it to the ground.
I'm so glad you said Joe Paterno, because as we recall, this, some people might not be listening, this was probably about 15 years ago, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, Joe Paterno wasn't the one who was doing all the abuse at Penn State. It was Jerry Sandusky. Right. But Joe Paterno didn't need to know. They all knew something was up with that guy, but they let it just slide because he's a good coach, and we're just gonna ignore it. And that's how I feel about this situation. Is Joe Paterno's perfect way, because Joe Paterno, his entire legacy turned to shit because it was too inconvenient to face the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, again, Joe Paterno never touched, as far as we know, ever touched anybody. Jerry Sandusky did a lot. And what made Joe Paterno just as guilty. And I'm again, we had people in the chat say you're wrong with this. I say people who I said, and I stand by this, that if you willfully ignore abuse, you're just as bad. Right? I believe that. I could be wrong. I'm not saying you have to freaking believe what I believe. I say if I'm a teacher, right? If I go to work every day and I know one of my colleagues is touching a kid, as in one mandated court reporter, if I don't say anything, like what am I? Because I like my job and I don't want to stir the pot. Like what kind of person does that make me?
Yeah. And I agree with you, and I'm with you on that. I'm someone that has had bystander intervention training, right? I'm very well versed in these situations. I know how to get people out of these situations. I'm trained in all of this stuff, and I've been doing it for a long time, right? I would like for people to be as brave as me in those situations, and not everybody is. And I hope that they will become that way. And I think there is an opportunity here for people to kind of turn some shit around, say what you know, do what you can. You know, there's only one way that this ends amicably for everybody. And we all know what way that is. And I don't want to get kicked off of YouTube before I say it, but I've said it in several different text chains. And I think everybody knows exactly how to get rid of Vince McMahon good and gone forever. There's only one real way. And that's the best way to handle this situation. Look, they used to get shit done in the 60s, right? And I'm just saying, they don't, we need a little bit of that these days. I'm about to get real fucking furious, but yeah, like, I don't want to I'm trying to say something without actually getting in trouble, but I think everybody knows where I'm going with this.
Mafia wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
I have to make light of things because that's the way I handle things.
Yeah, it's the only way I can process. That's the only way not to process stuff.
When my mom died, we had a meeting with the funeral director, and I was 21. And they talked to my dad, said it was going to be $5,000 to rent the casket. And I remember saying, $5,000 to rent a casket? And I looked at my dad and I said, well, we can't put her in a lawn chair. And it cut the tension. I mean, that's a horrible thing to say about your freshly dead mom. But I mean, one, she would appreciate it. Two, that's just how my fucked up brain works. I have to make jokes.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. When my mom died, I remember I took my dad to the we just went to the gas station to go get some like snacks and sodas and stuff like that. And he was paying, and the guy looked at him and he goes, this was like literally the day after. And they go, hey, do you want a bag? And he goes, no, thanks. I married one. And he had been saying that joke. Like he'd been saying that joke for decades at this point. And it was just like a joke that he just automatically thought to say. And every time he would say it, my mom would smack him in the arm. That was kind of like their thing. And then he said it again. Then he looked at me and goes, I'm sorry, son. I was like, Dad, what are you doing? I was like, and then we just kind of had a good laugh because, then we missed her. She would have been there for that moment to smack him right on his arm as he said that. But
I feel that, brother.
Yeah,
I feel that. But that's just, I don't think you and I could process this stuff any other way but make a couple of snide remarks. Old A in the chat has a nice remark. It says Nick Hausman. Pull that up real quick. That's funny.
Yeah. I think we do need to get into this.
Yeah, Nick Hausman is busy attending the Royal Rumble. By the way, don't be surprised if that presser doesn't happen this weekend. It's so funny that Nick Hausman was so willing to compare people to Harvey Weinstein until Harvey Weinstein actually shows his face, and then we're quiet. Speaking of pieces of shit, I have no respect for.
Yeah. Oh God, what a loser that guy is. And you know what? And it makes him even, now the stuff that's come out with Vince, it doesn't excuse that Jericho might have actually done something, but now no one's ever no one's ever going to focus on that again. No one's ever going to believe a word that Nick Hausman just said.
Oh no.
And he just got fired from his podcast, that podcast where he said all this stuff on. Conrad fired his ass. Well, of course he said he stepped down, but is what it is. But
say what you want about Conrad, he's not dumb.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just go accusing people unless the Wall Street Journal publishes a piece like today, and then you can discuss those things if you want. I don't know, man.
Well, what the Wall Street Journal did today, and I want everybody to make note of it. That's called journalism.
Journalism.
That's called investigative journalism. That's called, doing interviews and getting sources on and off the record, and getting the files to where you can actually look at the actual data, and putting like a well thought out, well sourced story. Unlike what Nick Hausman did, was go on his dumb shithead podcast and accuse somebody of being a Harvey Weinstein, when in fact we got a Harvey Weinstein that currently employs his best friend CM Punk.
Boy, that guy was certainly all full of morality until he got mad at I don't know, man. It's the loudest barkers are typically,
they're the worst. And you know what, dude? And I get it. Lots of money's at stake. I'm not a person that's driven by a ton of money. If people want to give me some more money, I would love that. I just don't think I got it in me to sell my soul like that. And there's gonna be a lot of times.
Mike and JD show.
Yeah, Mike and JD show. There's gonna be a lot of times in our lives where we're faced with a crossroads where we got to choose dignity or money, right? And a lot of times we choose money, right? And there's been times in my military career where I just swallowed my pride and I had to eat shit. But in this instance, where I will never turn a blind eye when someone's blatantly committing crimes, blatantly committing trafficking, blatantly, like, I just don't have that in me. So I just having a hard time trying to sympathize, empathize, and rationalize with the people that seem to be okay with it, that went along with the stuff that Vince McMahon was doing for a long time. And that's where JD was coming from earlier today. I was like, I just can't fathom it, because I just don't have that in me to overlook stuff like that.
I don't either.
Yeah. And you know what, dude? And I'll be honest, I didn't even talk to you about this yet, because I just decided it last night, because I had plans on Saturday and they got canceled. And so I was like, well, shit, I'm going to be home for the Rumble. I was like, you know what? I'll just tell the wife I'm going to watch the Royal Rumble. I've never missed one. Like, even when I deployed those 2 times, like I always found a way to watch the Royal Rumble. It's always been one of my favorite shows to watch. It's this Saturday. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do a recap for Patreon. I was going to call, Fed Pilled Joe and see if he was available. And then me and him would do a recording for the Patreon. And now I'm sick to my stomach. I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't know. And maybe by Saturday I'll be like, oh, you know what? I don't think anybody on the current roster had anything to do with it. And maybe I'll talk myself into it. But I was just like, I almost was like, yeah, let's do something for the Patreon, talk Royal Rumble, because it's always one of my favorite events. But I don't know. I just feel gross by the whole thing.
I can't. I mean, I'm not going to watch it. And I probably made a mistake. I went after our buddy Scott in the chat because I kind of have a bad habit of personifying him into everything wrong with WWE fans.
Scott is not our enemy, and he is not complicit in any of this stuff.
Yeah. No, I know. But he will go out and defend them, like against any random Twitter profile that says anything negative about WWE. He's right there doing the WWE thing.
You know who
crazy.
You know who he reminds me of?
What's that?
He reminds me of me when someone shit talks Brock Purdy on Twitter. But if Brock Purdy did some shit that happened today, I wouldn't be out there defending him, and neither was Scott today. Scott's not.
No.
So I was not a defender of Vince.
I erred in that, but I stand by why I erred. Like, I think that there's people, I'm not going to name names, there are people who sought to gain quite a bit if WWE got sold, right? And who allowed a serial predator to stay in advance to help their own careers in spite of what it meant to other people. And that disgusts me. And I pointed out how this particular person with a big nose disgusts me. And, I dared speak ill of the Lord and Savior of professional wrestling. So, I probably shouldn't have. I went looking for a fight and I found one. So that's bad. That's bad on me. But I was just so angry. And again, I'm not angry with Vince because like it's that scorpion, the scorpion and the frog, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. The scorpion, the frog, like, that scorpion's going to sting you, right? When I was a kid, my dad used to tell us that parable all the time. The story, for those of you who might not know, Scorpion the frog, farmer has to go across the river, or frog has to go across the river, right? And the scorpion says, I need a ride. And the frog goes, you're going to sting me. And the scorpion, swear to God, bro, I'm not going to sting you. The frog goes, okay. So the frog gets on the scorpion gets the frog. They're going across the river. Halfway through, the frog's legs go numb. He goes, why did you sting me? And the scorpion goes, you knew what I was when I started this journey.
Yeah.
Right. When I was a kid, I used to get so mad at my dad when he would tell me that, because I'd be like, why would the frog be so stupid? Like, and it used to make me angry because he would say this over and over again. I'm like, anyone who willingly allows themselves to have this happen to them is a moron. And the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, you know what? There's 100% right of a parable, because people let themselves get stung by these scorpions all the time for various reasons. And a lot of them are financially motivated. Right, because it makes them comfortable in the moment. Because being comfortable in the moment is easier than standing by what you believe. And it just, I don't know, man. I'm fucking self-righteous, dude. I know I preach, but it bothers me. It just really bothers me.
Yeah, it bothers me too. And you know what else is bothering me? There's somebody in the chat that's really, really bothering me, and I might ban this person. Hold on. Can I ban people from the chat?
It's our show. You can ban people from the I knew this was coming.
Look at this lady, Mel Gray. She's a former punt returner for the Detroit Lions, and she's been reincarnated. So you know what? I need to dig into I have like a box of football cards, and like every pack of football cards you would buy back in the day would have Mel Gray, who was the punt returner for the Lions. And sure enough, there is an actual Mel Gray in real life in Fight Game Media, and her name is Mel Gray, and she happens to be a Lions fan, even though I think she lives in Washington, which is I don't know. That's a little suspect to me, but she's been talking shit to me for all week because she thinks that the Detroit Lions, I can't even say it with a straight face, Detroit Lions beat San Francisco. No, so that's not even something that's ever going to happen. I can't even get the words out, but Mel, I see you, and the Lions are going down. You and John Muse can cry together after the game's over.
I think John Muse is such an abused Lions fan over there. It's like he just fully every time we talk to him about football, he just fully expects the Lions to implode at any moment. Like he's almost been in disbelief the entire season. Like if he loses, he's like, I knew it was going to happen. He reminds me a lot of my Cub fan friends from back in the day who just refused to believe the Cubs were going to win the World Series until they did. Like I like that. Mel, thanks for coming on. Mel's got a great show, Power Bombshells on YouTube.
Power Bombshells. Yep, this Sunday. Mel
Mel lives. She lives in Detroit.
She lives in Detroit.
A Seahawks fan.
She's a Seahawks, so she's double enemy. But Mel, put the time that Power Bombshells comes on.
Fan?
I don't know. I didn't even know they started a team.
Seahawks.
That's shocking to me. All right,
I'm a Bears fan, dude. I know all about misery and like being irrelevant.
Yeah. So we got some questions in. So have they talked about the Brock Lesnar part yet? You know what, Brock Lesnar, I did talk about Brock Lesnar, brief summary. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but as of this point, Brock Lesnar is not being accused of actually acting on anything. So there's no real serious allegations. And in fact, his name wasn't even brought up in the lawsuit. So I don't think anything's happening with Lesnar until there's more information, honestly. So, right. But I read what the accusation was, and the accusation was he was disgusting over a text message back and forth with this person. So I don't know if there's going to be anything there, but if he's a big part of this, he can eat shit too. Yeah. And so let's see. JD's right. Makes me sick to think everybody knew. I hate to think that John Cena is a hero and a good person, but probably still knew about us and didn't step up. Look, we don't want to go throwing around accusations towards people, but here's what I'll say. And I don't want to cast stones at anybody because you don't know what people actually know. But we all know what Vince is at this point. If these allegations today did not just drive that home, before maybe had a little bit of plausible deniability. And when someone's your friend, you try to believe them and you try to support them, right? Mm-hmm. Even when shit gets tough, you try your best. At this point, if people like Cena and The Rock and Austin and even Punk and anybody like Jericho and Mick Foley and all these people that go out there and they defend Vince and they say, well, he's always been good to me, blah, blah, blah. At this point, I have zero respect for you as a human being. If you can't find it in your heart to come out against this guy the way that Lance Storm just did, a former employee of his, I just don't have any respect for you at all. And in fact, if you continue to come out and compliment this guy, I'm gonna think maybe he has dirt on you. That's like, and I am susceptible to stuff like that, to conspiracies. I'm starting to think this is an Epstein situation where people are continuing to support and defend this guy because he can burn them to the ground too, and he can take them down because he's got all the bodies. He knows where they're buried. And if you're out there and if you're out there and you're still defending this guy and you're a friend of his, I'm assuming that you're a part of this.
I'll say this for John Cena. He's got a carefully crafted image. But Mike, you're a Stern fan. You remember when John Cena went on the Stern show and buried Chris Canyon of all people?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. That kind of colors my opinion of John Cena, the man, a little bit. Like, you should never worship you. There's no one. If you assume everyone's a scumbag, then you're never disappointed when you find out that they are.
Here,
Sam Shipman says I popped in. I'll get this one. Sam says I popped in here. You say you've been following the story and writing about it for 12 hours. I need a break from it. Yeah, Sam's.
You know
Sam,
what? Let's take a break.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, Sam.
Yep, and I think we're done with the subject. Thank you, Sam, for getting us off the subject because I'm sick of it, to be honest with you. All right, so let's go to WWE Netflix. We're gonna hit the highlights on this one too. Is this still a deal? after today, I don't know. Did the ink dry on that? Probably. But the WWE Netflix deal starting in January 2025. Raw in the U.S. Is moving to Netflix, and it's going to air live in the U.S., UK, Canada, Latin America, and other international markets. So for those of you that have been watching on like Sportsnet in Canada and TNT Sports in the UK, all that is moving over to Netflix come January 2025. And Netflix deal represents around a 30% raise. Now, people think it's a 50% raise because of the U.S. rights fee, but it's a 30% raise because this is taking over all these other international markets that are encompassing this stuff. So it's not that big 50% raise that they were thinking, but it's still 30% is still $500 million a year, which is insanity. So Thurston says, this is coming from Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. It's absolutely the wrong analysis to look at the $500 million deal and divide it by Raw's reported current average of $265 million. There's a bucket of international rights that the deal is superseding. Netflix would also, at that point, begin to air SmackDown, NXT, and all other major PLE events outside the U.S. In around 5 years, Netflix would have a good shot at becoming the U.S. home for all programming, which is really interesting. And then as far as like, how's Netflix doing right now? Well, they're doing pretty dang good, I guess. They got the U.S. Netflix subs. They're about between U.S. and Canada are 80.1 million. And then internationally, it's like a couple 100 million. So, so there's that story. And then, of course, Raw in the fourth quarter is pulling a TNA. Of all things, like they've copied TNA in the past, like, you know, Eli Drake and AJ Styles are at the Rumble this year for the world title, but now they're not gonna do shows for the fourth quarter, I guess. So right now they don't have a home for Raw from October into January, which is kind of wild. I'm sure they'll end up on YouTube or something or somewhere, but yeah, man, Raw to Netflix, that's a huge deal.
Big story. I find it interesting that it dropped this week. My conspiracy theory hat was on for that.
I don't think you're outside the lines on that one. I think maybe they rushed the deal because they knew the story was coming out, or maybe the Wall Street Journal was like, okay, hold on, we know this story's coming out, let's wait for it. I think there could have been some synergy there.
There's some synergy,
not synergy, but some. You know, it seems like like too much of a coincidence.
I got a hunch that the deal was pushed quick because they knew the story was going to drop and they wanted to boost the stock before an inevitable decline. Personal opinion, can't prove it. Conspiracy. Mike and I are both susceptible to different levels of conspiracies. Here's what's interesting. It's a 5-year deal. It's not a 10-year deal. Netflix has a chance has an option to opt out in 5 years, which means it's a 5-year deal. Just like every WWE contract's a 90-day contract. Like, so they can opt out for back in for another 10 years. So it's really a 15-year deal, not a 20-year deal. Here's what's crazy.
Dave said last night they could actually go all the way up to 20 years, actually.
Dave
so
this morning said I thought he said they could be 15.
I think so. After 5 years, after 5 years, Well, after 5 years, they could go to 10, and then they said they can go to another 10. I don't know. That's a little confusing to me. Well, maybe
It
we'll
is
look
super
more into that.
confusing. It is super confusing. What's interesting though is they've really locked themselves into what the value is, and who knows what. This is Dave too said this. Who knows what inflation is going to do to the price of these things in a decade plus, right? So
Yeah, I think Endeavor smells the sports rights bubble bursting soon, and knowing that this is probably, and they also see where television's heading, and I don't disagree with them. Television's heading to streaming, and Netflix adding live TV component to their platform is going to make them probably back up there as the top streamer in the world again, if they're not already.
They are.
Yeah.
They never lost it. They've always been the
Okay.
top.
For some reason I thought Disney Plus had surpassed them, but I guess not.
No,
Huh?
Netflix still has the lead in everybody. It's interesting though because you're not going to get those like it's like no, you know where you're getting paid. It's like having a salary. Like you know your check's coming. You know it's going to be valued, but you're not going to get a big boost. So I mean, they've been used to every 5 years getting a big boost, getting a big boost, getting a big boost. For almost 2 decades, they've locked themselves into no big boost.
Yeah,
Although
I think they get a big boost once the Peacock deal ends, and then once the SmackDown rights end. Yeah. So I think they'll get more money from Netflix for those once those end.
But we got to see kind of where it's at. Like it's going to be very interesting. I think it's a great deal, to be honest. I mean, it's not like they sold it really well. Like, oh, $5 billion deal. And it's like, oh, you break it down. It's like, okay, it's not quite as crazy as you think it is, but it makes sense. It's a lot of money for the company. It's good. It's good for their exposure. They're everywhere right now. Peacock, Netflix. Yeah. Like see, it's all over the place. I imagine that gets consolidated eventually, probably to Netflix in the next couple years. Hopefully this ends ratings debates. Like I hope this ushers in a new glorious utopia where we don't talk about ratings all the time.
Well, we'll find a different way to talk about it, because right now I think not Nielsen, but somebody's tracking Netflix views and minutes watched. I know, but they have like minutes watched, and because I was actually looking into it because I don't know why I was reading this article recently, but The Rock's movie Red Notice that came out on Netflix, I thought was a pretty good movie, was like the most watched. And the way they broke it down is it had the most minutes watched. And I'm like, how was that not The Irishman? Because that had the most minutes of any movie in history. And if you watch it one time, you got to break records there.
Fair.
Sorry, I thought that joke was going to land better.
That's the part about having humor is you got to make a lot of jokes. They don't all land, but that's okay. You go back and you try again. Like when Stranger Things came on, they had press release saying 8 bazillion people watched Stranger Things, and it's like, well, it's not. You don't have that many subscribers. But I mean, like, so Netflix, they don't have like the oversight of a Nielsen really to tell them, So I mean, like, it's actually a really good deal for WWE because they don't have to they don't have to stress on who's watching what. I mean, I imagine there'll be some internal debate, but there won't be as of right now, maybe this could change in a year or so down the line, but there won't be a ton of media or online discourse about who's watching Raw. And, Netflix is going to figure out this live sports thing. I mean, I've still have the mind that we will see an implosion of the streamers within the next, I said this 5 years ago in Superhero Speak, that we'll see an implosion of the streamers and Netflix will be the one to last because they've been in the game the longest. And they didn't go crazy till now. Like everybody was over the last 4 years, everybody's been super investing in building up your streaming, and Netflix just kind of laid back and just worried about original programming. Now, when everybody else is kind of starting to feel the pinch, now they're like, okay, now we go in on live sports. And Rich and Joe said something interesting too about Netflix artificially having raised the ceiling on these sports media rights to force everyone else to have to pony up. So that could have been a game that they played too. I don't know. It's fascinating. It's weird though to say WWE only on Netflix. It's a weird thing. That's bizarre.
Yeah, but honestly, that's kind of whenever the WWE Network came out, and I was watching quite a bit of time. That was my dream. I was like, okay, like just have Raw, SmackDown, have everything just on, and all the PLEs all in one place. I think ultimately, eventually, that's where we get to, where everything's on Netflix, and I think we get there with AEW on HBO Max or whatever it's called, Max. Yeah, because now with WWE kind of being locked in with Netflix and with USA and CW and Peacock, they're no longer negotiating with WBD. I think once WBD finishes up with these NBA rights deals, then they're going to go in on AEW, and I think AEW is probably going to get themselves a pretty good television / streaming deal in the Warner Brother empire.
Yeah, they'll wind up being all right. I think I got the hunch that they were good with the WBD was good with AEW when they put out that press release. Was it a week or two ago, touting how great AEW's been for them? Like, okay, they must be cool now. But I didn't want to say that out loud because I didn't want to have to eat a lot of shit from the people on the show. So I'm like, I'll keep this and act like later, like, oh, I saw this coming. But I'll take my victory lap on this, even though I didn't stake a claim. King of the North says, as someone in Canada, everything is on Netflix. W Network gone. Sportsnet package gone on cable. Yeah, man, that's this is the new world.
So in the US, we still have it on certain cable channels, the USA, CW, and Peacock, but everywhere else, it's all just Netflix. And so I think eventually Netflix is just going to own everything in just about every territory. There are some territory, like India wasn't a part of it because they're already locked in, but I think, once Middle East deal ends in India, Middle East, of course, in Japan, they're all locked in with Abema. So once they move off of Abema, and it's funny, smaller scale, I know, but TNA currently has a similar deal with DAZN where they're all inclusive on DAZN in like 40 different territories or something like that. I think that's what you're going to see with WWE and Netflix starting, and it will be in the US probably by the end of in like the next 5 years. That's where we'll be at.
Which is fine. I'm sure they would rather have that. I know they like having their stuff all out all over our place right now, but I think that's got to be hard to keep track of things. And I'm sure Endeavor would like to have everything kind of in one spot soon, because it seems like Endeavor might have some fires to put out now. They've got these media rights figured out. Now we have other things to attend to.
And I'm sure they don't want to have to fucking negotiate with like Uzbekistan State TV to get Raw on like Tuesday mornings at 3 a.m. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I feel like it was like, if we can just get like one check from everybody, I think that would be the easiest way to go. And it's like, and I think it adds like more stability too with your own market. You know what I mean? And plus, like, Netflix is huge. Like, I think I'm the only guy that doesn't have Netflix. My father-in-law canceled it last year. I'm like, well, fuck. But it's like expensive, so I'm not getting it right now.
Hey, Matt, I know you're listening right now. I appreciate the password all these years. You're not going to have to worry because I'm not going to watch, so we'll be fine.
Yeah. The last time I'm probably I'm going to be done with my cable package soon. I'm going to be canceling it again, so maybe I'll pick up Netflix when Stranger Things comes out again. But
I will get it when Stranger Things comes back because I got to know how it ends. I've been in this thing since 2016. I need to see what happens to these kids. I'm far too invested.
The letter A says India deal will expire in December of 2026. Oh, okay. Yeah. So maybe by the end of, then they'll probably be moving over to Netflix. Sorry. And then, Tactical Playmaker, I believe this is Nonzo. Is TNA making any money from DAZN? I have no idea. I mean, I don't think they're getting it for free. So, and as JD Oliva likes to say, some money is better than no money. And so that's probably what they were getting before they had the DAZN deal. So, and TGV says, in Australia, WWE is locked into Murdoch News, controlled Foxtel until at least the end of 2027. All right. And then if you need cred, I Am the Snowman on Netflix. There you go. I don't know what that means. And then Io says Netflix is 5 minus paying extra for another watch screen. No, Netflix is fine minus paying extra for another watch screen. Yeah. So maybe me and a buddy will go in on that deal. But yeah, so I think this is nothing but a huge victory for them. And now it got lost in all the news with Vince, but that was originally the top story because we like to talk about TV rights on this show. At the same time, they actually announced that The Rock was added to the TKO board. And
I don't care. I find this to be the most unimportant thing in the world. Who gives a fuck? He gets the right to his name, The Rock. Now, I thought he already had it. I can't think of wrestling news that I would care less about than The Rock has some bullshit board. Dude, positions on a board are bullshit, man. They're just going to pay him money. Hey, you're The Rock. And quite frankly, he is The Rock and deserves to get a couple bucks from WWE for the rest of his life for keeping them viable. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, whatever. And they made his daughter the GM on NXT. It's like, oh, who fucking cares?
Yeah. Well, I think people naturally thought that The Rock was on the board, that he would be wrestling at WrestleMania and be a part of the UFC. Look, when Endeavor bought the UFC, they actually, because they had so many clients that they were agents of, like next thing you know, like Conan O'Brien has stock in UFC, like all like Mark Wahlberg, like all the it was like 0.000 whatever, but a lot of their celebrity clients all got shares in their new company. And I just took it as one of the, like, he's not gonna have any decision making power. They gave him $30 million, and which is great, like he needs it, but that was about it. Get Lost says The Rock is very good PR and they could use it right now. He is good PR, but
not anymore. That PR news is down the toilet. Nobody cares. Vince is Vince, and that is yesterday's news. Man, the news cycle moves fast.
Yeah. He was good the day of. I watched him on ESPN First Take. He was good on that show, but yeah, he is The Rock. Need The Rock EVP gimmick like the Young Bucks booking themselves Mania main event. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that might happen anyway.
Yeah. All right. So I found this one, and I think we're going to close the show on this because we're going to take some time with this one. Misinformation leaks to one Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso. Okay, first of all, Sports Illustrated just last week fired everybody, and they didn't fucking fire this idiot. I would have assumed that this guy, he must be doing this for free in order for him to continue to write his shitty little column. But anyway,
would it surprise you?
Yeah. So yesterday, Sports Illustrated, this is like this was a big story yesterday, by the way, said The Rock will face Roman Reigns. This was a top story in Sports Illustrated. So he said that coming up at WrestleMania, The Rock is going to face Roman Reigns and Cody is now going to face CM Punk. So he said, with The Rock facing Roman Reigns, where does this leave Cody Rhodes? Well, multiple sources close to WWE head of creative Paul Triple H Levesque have indicated that Rhodes will not headline this year's event, nor will he finish his story at WrestleMania. But there is still a new chapter to write with a marquee matchup to be had against CM Punk. He also goes on to state that Gunther will win the Royal Rumble and challenge Seth Rollins. These are very specific things. And then today, so yesterday, when we texted our friend who shall remain nameless, what did he say about Cody and Cody and CM Punk?
'Twas bullshit.
Bullshit. So we heard it was bullshit. And then as it turns out, today Barrasso retracted the story and is now predicting that Cody is on track to win the Rumble and finish the story at WrestleMania. He also stated it's possible The Rock waits for the Netflix deal to start to challenge Roman and at Mania in front of a live worldwide audience. And he goes on to state, and I quote, I reported spoilers for Sports Illustrated yesterday regarding the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 40. I reported what was detailed to me by previously reliable sources. Kevin Patrick. It appears to be that this was a deliberate attempt at misinformation that is being spread through WWE itself. I apologize for the errors in yesterday's report. When posting these reports, the entirety of the information needs to be accurate. Is WWE trying to plug some leaks? And is it weird that Kevin Patrick got fired on the same day?
It's weird.
Is that just me connecting dots here?
One, I don't think Kevin Patrick was very good at his job. So
no, he wasn't.
It's an interesting coincidence. That being said, how do you know this isn't misinformation? WWE's been doing this for decades. Like, I mean, I still, until I'm shown differently, why wouldn't the main event of WrestleMania be The Rock and Roman Reigns? That's the biggest match the company can put out. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it is. And I'm not going to believe otherwise until I'm proven wrong. And well, I'm not going to watch the show anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't know. I didn't seem. I'll say this: Cody is not as hot as he was a year ago.
No, he's still pretty. Hot. Not
as hot.
He's still hot. They could heat him up though. Like he's not that far off. And that segment he had with CM Punk this past Monday was pretty good. Somebody did me a favor by releasing just that segment of Raw on Twitter, the whole 13-minute thing, and I was like, hey, got what I need, buddy. That was great. But so they do this every year, and I did. So we were in our little group chat, and someone's like, I don't think any of that's true. I think it might be bullshit. And we're like, but it's Sports Illustrated. When Barrasso gets a story about WWE, it's usually like it might as well be coming from like Nick Khan himself, right? Because they use Sports Illustrated. Like Sports Illustrated stopped being journalism a long time ago. That's why they just fucking fired everybody. Nobody reads it. But when Barrasso reports stuff, it's just because it's like what we've accused the media of being before as just PR. It was like essentially a PR release. So I thought, okay, maybe they want this stuff out there. I think maybe somebody with like a gambling problem wanted this stuff out there just to get the odds up on Roman and down on Cody, so he can actually put a bet on Cody and be able to win. I don't know. And WWE is a part of the whole gambling system now too. So,
which is weird. Gambling on pro wrestling is something I'll never understand. It's like gambling on a movie. I think Frodo's gonna throw the ring in the Mordor. I'll got $30 on it. Like, it's just
have you ever watched Dirty Work with Norm Macdonald and Artie Lang?
Oh, it's been a long time, but I saw it a long time ago.
So there's a scene in that movie where so Norm Macdonald, his job is to like do dirty deeds and do them cheap. He gets paid to actually go pull he gets paid to go pull pranks on people with his buddy Artie. Well, he gets hired by Chevy Chase, who's got like broken hands and broken wrists because he's got a gambling problem. And in there, he was like talking about all these different failed gambling things. He goes, and then he just goes, and fucking Mr. T, I just couldn't believe it. And he goes, wait a minute. He goes, you bet on the fight in Rocky, and you bet against Rocky. And he goes, it was Mr. T, and he had already won.
I remember that line now. That's a good one. So let me counter you with this Barrasso fact. You're neglecting the fact that he's a moron. So I mean, like, this could also he's an idiot. This is the same man that said TNA could make a strong play to be the number 2 company with the TV deal.
That was a different idiot.
TV deal. I thought that was a different idiot.
That was Justin LaBar.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got my dumb fuck Justin's confused. I'll take the L on that. I'll take the L on that.
Yeah.
I get the dumb fucks in the wrestling media confused sometimes because they're all such schmucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my bad.
Yeah. But I did find that interesting. That they were trying to plug a leak there. It's pretty freaking hilarious. Yeah, it worked because it was all over the place. But look, as you can tell, like Sapp never reported it, Dave never reported it. It never made it to the torch. Like I actually went to check because as I was making the original notes for the show, I actually went to the Observer to pull the notes because they paraphrase them better, I think. So I went to go pull those, and there was nothing to be found on the Observer site at all. And the Observer site is an affiliate of Sports Illustrated. Like they work together. So I was like, I assumed that they would co-sign it, but no, they weren't even co-signing that. So that's how far off this was. Like this is just a guy probably getting something single sourced and then just went out on a limb, and looks like a leak got plugged somewhere at some point.
Journalism.
Yeah.
Single source reporting.
Yeah.
Dangerous territory. God, we're surrounded by buffoons. I hope that this weekend they actually do have the presser, just so I can get really mad at all these dipshits who don't have a fucking ball in their body. I hate, like, I astound myself with just how much everybody loves their press passes and are so scared that they might not get free tickets to the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I get to play make believe. It's unbelievable.
Dude, I remember being on those old Impact press passes, and I remember I was on one for Slammiversary a couple years ago during the pandemic, and it was on Zoom, and they would call on me, but I would ask real questions because I'm like I'm not trained in like being fake on these things. So I like everybody else was like asking questions in character, but I was like I'm just a novice. I didn't know the game, or I'm just too stupid. I don't know what it was, but
self-respect.
So they call me in, and of course, every time I'm about to blow someone's mind, I start with a compliment, right? And Gail Kim is on there, and they got Ross Foreman in the background, and I think Chris Sabin was on. No, it was Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander was on, and I told this great story about the time I met Gail's husband, the chef guy, Robert Irvine. I met him in Afghanistan. He was so nice, and I shook his hand. I was like, hey, where's Gail? And he had a good laugh about that. And they go, great. And I go, hey, when are fans coming back to the arenas? And they all just looked at me like, and then Ross goes, we don't know yet. And then like they go to the next caller. I was like, but that was a big issue at the time. And I was like, it was like 30 minutes into this press pass. I was like guest number 10. Like they're going, like I'm very low on the totem pole. Like they're already going past like WrestleZone and the Miami Herald and all these like legit sites. And here I am from fucking Fight Game with a shitty little Impact podcast. And I go, when are fans coming back? And like, I remember like people DMing me. I'm so glad you asked that question. I was like, why the fuck didn't you ask it? That's an easy question to ask. I just don't understand.
Because people are worried about losing access. That's what it comes to. Is more than anything, these guys, and I'm not going to bury Sam Roberts because Sam Roberts knows what he is, but he wants access. He wants to be able to have these guys on his show. And like,
Sam Roberts wants to be a part of the show. He likes being on-air talent for them. He doesn't really, he's a comedian. I don't think he considers himself a journalist, but
no, 100%. But that's what they want to be. There's not enough people that want to be Dave because being Dave is hard, and Dave faces a lot of criticism. And to Dave's benefit, he didn't give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
Dave doesn't care. Like but it's a lot easier to be one of those guys who just wants to be part of the show than it is to ask real questions. And wrestling here's the thing. Wrestling people have had this adversarial relationship with their fans and with the media since the existence of it. One, wrestling has always been lying to the media from day one, right? It's a work, right? Yeah. That was a lie for the longest time. So that's the nature of the relationship between wrestling and the media, right? It goes back to the get-go. So, I mean, like, and there's so many people now that want to play in kayfabe, right? Because they want to cosplay that they're part of the show. They don't want to actually get in there and learn something. If something ever happens to Dave, like we're fucked. We're fucked.
Yeah. You know what? And Phil Strum, who I have had many good conversations with in the Fight Game Media group over there, I mean him have DM'd on Twitter. Like he was really the one of the few guys. I think there's a couple other ones in the AEW presser that actually asked tough questions about Jericho. I was like, oh, good. I think that he's from USA Today. I think that he's like, I'm USA Today. I can ask these questions because they're going to want USA Today to be a part of this because they're part of a bigger thing, you know?
Kudos.
And kudos to John Pollock, who actually really took Dana White to task. And he took a lot of heat for it this week because he asked about the behavior of their at the time, middleweight champion, Sean Strickland. So, who said a lot of homophobic and transphobic stuff back in the day.
Strickland, not a great guy. John Pollock's got balls, man. He's a real journalist. John Pollock is one of the good guys. You know, he's out there. He speaks truth to power. Like there's not enough John Pollocks, right? Not enough. It's way easier to be Ryan Satin.
Yes, and Ryan Satin took some heat today, and he deserves it. Yeah, Ryan Frederick went. Ryan Frederick went after him, and then of course,
I love our friend.
A little bit. Yeah,
I missed that. I'm very proud of you, sir.
No. I just retweeted Ryan's tweet, and then I went down in Satin's old tweets and started retweeting compliments he made of Vince. Yeah, so I was just like, oh god, because he's a total stunt. But you know what? Here, look, A gives a good shout out here too. Brandon Thurston is great. I think that he does. He works very hard, and he gets a lot of the statistical data that I think a lot of us crave. And that's really what gets to because you know what? Numbers are not like, that's not abusive language, right? Like numbers have like no side. It's just data. It's just numbers. And you know what I mean? Now like statistical analysis can be skewed one way or the other, depending on how you format it, but the numbers themselves are not offensive.
I've always found numbers to be very offensive based on my high school math grades. So I would disagree with you on that. I find numbers to be remarkably offensive. No, but those are, John Pollock and Brandon Thurston. And these are the guys who are going to have to wave the banner when the day comes that Dave's no longer fighting the good fight. I mean, there's just not enough, man. There's just not enough. There's too many.
Yeah.
There's too many guys who worry about their press pass. There's too many guys. And this is my problem. This is what it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is there's so many people that love, and again, the AEW pressers are just as disgusting. There was a time they would talk about things there. Now they're part of the show too. And Tony's just as fucking guilty in that regard. There's so many people that grew up as fans of WWE that they have this emotional connection to it. And unlike a beat reporter for a newspaper or a national reputed source, like they can't divorce themselves from it, right? They feel like they want to be part of what's going on, like they want to be connected to it. So they take these like defensive and what's gross too is WWE has their tendrils stretched out so far over like actual media that they're very good at massaging their message into things. Like your Ariel Hawani's, he's been quiet too. like going after Tony.
Yeah.
He loves going after Tony, but when you know
Mhm.
big Vince McRape guy does stuff, oh, he's quiet all of a sudden, right?
Not
Zero
really
respect for
talking.
him.
Yeah.
No, it's funny how that works out. All these guys that love to make fun of Tony Khan for stuff or love to take a LOL TNAs, like those guys, super quiet
Mhm.
when real problems come out. Right? Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Like,
Yeah.
I just, I cannot stand the people that just turn a blind eye to shit or willingly play with, and this is me, the bad guys, because they liked it when they were kids. It makes them feel like they're 10 again. It's just nice to be
you
a
know,
little
it's
kid.
like, no, you're right. You're so right. They grow up being fans, and all they ever wanted to do was be a part of it. Or like, you know, in the case of Ariel Helwani, he grew up being a big fan, and then he became like he was a legit reporter in
Yeah.
MMA. He was so legit and so
Yeah.
respected that he essentially got his credentials revoked from him because he was doing actual real reporting and real journalism. But he just saw covering wrestling is because he was covering like a legitimate sport where he was doing MMA and in-depth MMA, and he actually started covering boxing at one point too for Showtime Sports. And he just saw, oh, well, this is just this fun thing over here. I can kind of pretend to be a reporter and just kind of make fun of it. And then at the same time, just totally giving away all of his credibility. And then also whenever it was convenient to him, when his agent, Nick Khan, wanted to put out a press release through him, he would report on that and act like it's a big news thing. And so, and that was a really tough one for me too, because dude, for the longest time, I was a much bigger UFC fan and an MMA fan. Like, dude, I'm talking about, I was staying up all night watching fucking dream events at like 2 a.m. on HD net, right? Trying to watch Fedor fight these big giant 7-footers and sumo wrestlers in the middle of the night. Like, so I go way back, and he was like the top guy, and I was watching his show every week and listening to his podcast, and to see how far he had fallen once he'd lost his ESPN gig, and where he said, well, fuck it, I'm just going to be a content creator too. And then now it's like you don't know what to take seriously with the guy, and especially at a time like this where he wants to be more focused on petty battles with wrestling celebrities, and then he wants to cover real news in MMA at the same time. It's fucking tough to take you seriously.
No, 100%. And that's what bothers me is like, yeah, Tony Khan could be a big fucking dork sometimes and it's fun to make fun of him.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you got a real monster here, and then everybody goes quiet. Is it they're afraid of Nick Khan? Are they afraid of Vince McMahon? Are they just afraid of the WWE machine? I mean, it could be a little bit of combination of all these things. All I'm saying is, y'all disgust me. Y'all disgust me, and you need contempt, and you need to like have your morals readjusted because you suck.
Yes, you do suck. Can we end on a lighthearted note today? Because Sam did jump in the chat and told us to stop talking about this, and then we fucking went back to it. So sorry, Sam. She told us to lay off. But
it's not the first time a woman smarter than me has told me what to do, and I have not listened to it.
Yeah. Same, bro. Same. Been married a long time. Same. So, you know what? We'll end on this. Kazuchika Hogan. We had a
bit played around that too.
Yeah. I know, man. Yeah, Kazuchika Hogan. According to the Super J Cast, so I'm going to say this very delicately because I don't want them to think that I'm aggregating their show. I'm not doing that. But you guys talked about it. We're on the same network, so I'm going to talk about it here.
Guys. Respect.
VOW guys, yeah, respect guys. So. It came out on their podcast. They have some sources over there in New Japan, and they said that the last year or so has been pretty contentious between the New Japan office. Hold on, I'll get to that, Sam. Between the New Japan office and Okada. Okada basically not wanting to put the young guys over, not wanting to work with the young guys. Kind of, it became more of an adversarial relationship, and there's a lot of hurt feelings over the way Okada is leaving.
Yeah, to say the least. And like the kid, like Joel Namath calling him Kazuchika Hogan, because again, it doesn't work for me, brother.
In their defense, it was one of their readers that called him that, and then I almost drove off the side of the road. Yeah.
It's still hilarious. I heard it on their show. I couldn't remember who actually said it. Like, it's still funny the fact that Okada just doesn't. That's why the report that came out this week that he's going to go to NXT cracked me up. It's like you're not going to work with the guys that Shibata's training that can actually work, but you're going to go. Risk your life wrestling Gable Steveson or something like that. Like, I'm flabbergasted by this idea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. It doesn't, honestly, Okada's not, he's certainly winning a lot of matches for a guy in his way out of the company. You know,
he just beat Tanahashi, didn't he? And
I
then
know,
they vacated the titles. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, even Hogan lost to Yokozuna on the way out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had to get salt in his eyes, but he did lose. Yeah.
I don't know, man. This God, that Okada thing seems like it was 10 weeks ago at this point.
I know, man. That was going to be like one of our top stories. It want to be one of our top bits.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah, bummer. But hey, well, shit, I didn't want to end on a bummer. Damn, dude. I was trying not to end on
You fucked up.
I was trying not to end on a bummer. I had some TNA stuff, but I think I'm going to save TNA. Well, you know what? Here, let's talk about this. We'll end on a high note.
Yeah,
okay.
Please.
Okay. Because over the weekend, for some fucking reason, TNA decided to bring in Simon Gotch. Right.
Why? Why would you bring the third guy from Contra in? The other vaudevillain. He sucks.
Yeah.
The guy got his ass kicked by the fake Sin Cara.
Yeah. Now I get the feeling this is like a heel of the month type of thing with their top babyface. The problem is this guy has no credibility and nobody's going to give a fuck about that match. But they totally redeemed themselves tonight when at the end of TNA was over. They did a post-credit scene where it appears, I don't know if they've signed him or they're bringing him in, but Mustafa Ali is coming in along with, and Nick Nemeth is already apparently a signed talent there. Well, no announcements have been made that he's signed. It looks like he's a signed talent there. So Mustafa Ali. So, hey, look, they couldn't get the deal done to bring him into the Orlando taping. So they pivoted, I'm guessing, or maybe Simon Gotch was like their plan all along for Orlando. Cause maybe he lives on the street corner there. I have no idea what he does nowadays. He's got a stupid fucking mustache and he sucks. But look, Mustafa Ali coming into TNA. I'm pretty happy about that. And Nick Nemeth appears to be doing great because he just had his second video on Impact's YouTube or TNA's YouTube to go over 1 million views, which for TNA is pretty freaking good. Like for modern TNA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can't argue that. No, you can't. They will never totally redeem themselves for bringing in Simon Gotch to feud with Josh Alexander. That is one of the worst. This happens, and I'm like, Scott, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, what are you fucking? I don't know. Spoil that shit. I'm saving people. I'm helping people. You don't need to waste your time with this. Joe, the other guy in Contra, Joseph Samael, at least he could cut a promo and he is the Sheik's nephew and he's kind of crazy. And Fatu is awesome. Then you bring in the other guy who was just there for reasons. Like, it's fucking mind boggling. I saw that in our chat and I'm like, really? The Hammerstone, they can't seem to get a deal with, but they're bringing in fucking Simon Gotch.
I think the Hammerstone deal is going to get done. I think he might have had some bookings that kind of conflicted, but he's been posting every day about TNA and sharing pictures of himself like as if he were a signed talent. But I think that he just couldn't make these latest dates. So I get the feeling he's coming in. Although there's a rumor out there that MJF wants him in to AEW, which makes a lot of sense considering that was like their original faction, right?
Yeah, the Dynasty. You get him and Richard Howe. I like I said, 2019 MLW is like not a guilty pleasure. I actually enjoyed 2019 MLW. It was a good promotion. Boy, did they fall apart. The Dynasty, it was Hammerstone, Richard Holiday, and MJF. Like they were a pretty good little heel faction over there. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think that Hammerstone fits better in TNA right now. You add Nick Nemeth, you add Mustafa Ali. Now you've got a good core of TNA wrestlers. Right, which is what this company is sorely needed for, just a shakeup, like just some fresh blood in the company. Remember how excited we were when the Honor No More thing happened?
Mm-hmm.
Like we were huge fans, and they just fucking killed that real quick. And then Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, which also kind of took the sales out of that.
That's what
too.
Killed. Yeah, that's what killed it because they had them under those ROH deals, and they had them for like an X amount, like 8 months or something like that. And then Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, thus getting their contract after those TNA level deals were up. But here Nonzo says went from Ospreay to Gotch. Poor Josh Alexander.
That happened. That really happened. He's having a match with Will Ospreay, and now he's got to wrestle Simon fucking Gotch.
Yeah, I think I made the comment in the chat that's like going from Beyonce to Wendy Williams. Oh god.
Okay, you got it. You won.
Okay, yeah,
I'm good.
I think we'll end on that. I didn't plug the Patreon. Go to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show. Hey, we got 43 people watching this, 44 now. Can each and every one of you give us a big thumbs up, please? Just give us a big thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And then join us over on patreon.com/the Mike and JD show. Because right after we get done, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to head over to Patreon, JD and I, and we're going to do our Sting's rivalry series, and we are going to get into Cactus Jack / Mick Foley. And I got tons of notes about the match with Beach Blast 92, the Falls Count Anywhere match. And for you TNA fans, I know you guys missed the old Brace for Impact days with me and JD. We're going to talk about his Lockdown 2009 match between Mick Foley and Sting. So I got a bunch of notes on that because, surprise, Mick Foley. I got a bunch of notes for you. Mick Foley actually wrote an entire book about that match, believe it or not. And so I was able to. He did, called Countdown to Lockdown. It's basically so when he was leaving WWE at the time. His last run in WWE as an active wrestler, he had this book out called The Hardcore Diaries, where it was kind of like he was falling out of love with them, and he's doing the feud with Ric Flair, and I think he had Melina at one point in his stable, and he was doing his heel stuff. Well, that whole thing goes south. He ends up leaving, and so he starts to write a new book when he gets signed to TNA, and his march back to facing Sting at Lockdown, because he always felt that Sting was the guy that put him on the map. And so I felt like us talking about the match in 1992 Beach Blast and then bookending it with the match in 2009, contrasting the two and where the guys are at in their career, I think is going to be a cool thing. So please go to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show. Guys, everybody, thank you in the chat. I really do appreciate you guys. This was a tough subject to cover tonight. I hope we did you guys proud, and hope we did you guys justice. So thank you very much. And until next time, mahalo.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Make no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Make no rain.